Hey everyone, I'm Armor Gaming, welcome back to my channel and welcome to Monster Analysis. Up for analysis today is Firca. Firca is a ferocious attacker who has become a legend in the Orc tribe. Despite not being as big as other soldiers like Barrage, her mastery with the axes as well as her recklessness and endless stamina on the battlefield have made her a feared leader in the tribe. And so here we have Firca, the newest and latest fire legendary monster, and once again, as I like to say when I make these analysis videos, I am recording this analysis video before the actual release of this monster, and so something that you see in this video, the stats, the skills, the rune slots, the bugs, some of that could possibly be changed by the time the monster is actually released. And so with that said, let's get into the analysis. Power is 3454, which in the fire category puts her tied for 23rd place, along with monsters like the War Master Barbell and FirEca. And the power stat itself, 3454, this is the 10th highest power stat in the fire category. So it's not necessarily a bad power, but just the fire category tends to be full of attacker type monsters. The life stat of 31667 puts her tied for 8th place along with monsters like the Inheritor, so it's a pretty good life stat for a fire monster, and actually overall I would say this is above average for monsters. And as for the speed stat of 3465, this puts her tied for 7th place along with monsters like Lucifer the Hell Taser, Lucifer the Hope Freezer, Tulikahu, General Dartmouth, and Shelinar. So there's plenty of monsters that have this speed, plenty of attackers in the fire category that have this speed, but overall it is a really good speed for an attacker. And as for the trait, well, this is an orc monster, so she has the orc trait. All status effects have a 25% less accuracy against it, and what can I say, the orc trait is a pretty good trait to have. Now it appears that more and more monsters are having the tough trait, which is the general trait, 35% immunity to everything, whereas previously monsters used to have the hardened trait. So the orc trait is somewhere around the middle between those two. So not necessarily the best trait she could have, but it's a pretty good one considering the alternative would be just a hardened trait. As for the books, this monster is in the Families book, an Evil Legion book, and a Female book. And I'm kind of surprised she's also not a part of the Underworld book because she kind of looks like she can fit in that book. And I believe one of the other orc monsters, or maybe some of the other ones, are in the Underworld book. But nonetheless, she has a wide variety of usage. So fire monster, legendary monster, 3 books, that's 5 different types of wars, so that's pretty good there. She can actually hold double swords. So honestly, if you were able to get your hands on a Jakugan sword and you could rank it up all the way to 40, which is super expensive, you can get 2 of them, then it could be a way to make this monster extremely powerful in terms of offense. But I have to say, just wait until I talk about the skills. So as usual, let's talk about the ultimate skill first. Berserker mode. Applies triple damage and precision to itself, removes all negative status effects, and deactivates all cooldowns from itself, gives 100% of stamina to itself. So this ultimate skill obviously does a lot. You get the triple damage, the increased accuracy so you don't miss your next attack with that double damage. All your cooldowns are restored so that way you can utilize your AoE. Your stamina is completely restored, negative effects are completely gone. If you were blinded or dazed, all that would disappear. So it's a really great setup ultimate skill. The only thing that could have made this better was if you got an immediate extra turn, that way you can guarantee that triple damage and precision. Because if you were to be in a dire situation where you actually got your ultimate, even if you use it, you still have to keep your monster alive until the next turn so you can finally use your next attack. So like on a 1v3 battle, you're probably still going to get wrecked. In a situation where it's still like 3 against 3 and you get your ultimate, well, you don't get any benefit right away because it's a setup skill. You're still going to have to protect your monster, you have to make sure you don't get denied, and the orc trait does help. But as far as ultimates go, it's a really good ultimate in terms of setting up. Like for example, if you had a Cloud on your team and your Cloud was going next, and then you got your ult, you can use your ult, then use Cloud to turn transfer, give yourself double damage, and then your next attack is guaranteed gonna wipe out all of the enemy monsters. But just by itself, the ultimate, I love the effect, but it's just missing that immediate extra turn like we've been seeing from other monsters. So I will say, this ultimate is kind of lacking in my opinion. Alright, and so now let's dive into skills group 1. The only skill I want to talk about here is Endless Staminork. Gives 100% of stamina to itself, 50% chance of applying instant death to itself. And so remember in this monster description that said endless stamina in the battlefield? I believe this is the only skill they were talking about. I don't think this monster has any other skills that recover stamina. So Endless Staminork. It costs no stamina, has a 3-turn cooldown. You get 100% of your stamina back, but there's a 50% chance you instant death yourself, which I'm definitely not a fan of. Why would you use a skill that could potentially kill your monster? If this monster could have held the Oriel's essence, then there's a little more argument to run skills like this. But as a standalone skill, it's like you're definitely taking a big risk and the upside isn't that great. If it was like 100% stamina and double damage and triple damage and immediate extra turn, then I could see reason for it. But just like that, I don't know how great it is. Because I mean seriously, if you're worried about having your stamina drained, if you're worried about having no stamina on a monster, there are better ways to recover stamina. There's stamina regen, you can put some relics on your teammates to recover your stamina. A skill like this, it's just, the chances are it's not going to be that useful. let's move on. Well, let's quickly talk about the other ones. Brutal Aggressor deals low special damage, 20 special base damage, 1 turn cooldown, 25 stamina cost. Ferocious Strike deals moderate fire damage. No, not even worth talking about that. Let's go to skills group 2. Dangerous Orcvery. I'm not gonna do this anymore. 50% chance of healing itself by 100% and removing all negative side effects. That's pretty cool, except it's only a 50% chance, so you may not actually heal yourself or remove negative effects. And it also has a 50% chance of applying instant death to itself. Again, instant death. So 50% chance you heal all the way, your life is completely restored, you remove any negative effects, but that might not happen, and then there's a 50% chance you just kill yourself. Not that great of a skill. There's way too much risk, not enough upside. Unforgiving Axe deals moderate fire damage to all enemies, applies bleeding to all enemies, finally a skill that doesn't have a downside. So 30 fire based AoE that applies bleeding, 2 turn cooldown, 25 stamina cost. Flaming Inferno deals moderate fire damage to all enemies, applies burn to all enemies. So both of these skills, I think if you have this monster, are like must have, must run skills. AoE bleeding, AoE burning, no downside, both fire based. These two skills are probably what you're going to be utilizing back to back. If you ever happen to get your ultimate, one of these two skills is essentially what you're going to use to finish off the enemy monsters. Let's move on. Skills group 3. Bloodthirsty Combo deals low special damage to one enemy, 10% chance of killing itself, 50% chance of applying bleed to one enemy, gives 1 extra turn to itself. Okay, so this skill only deals 20 special base damage. That is not a lot. A 50 stamina cost, that is high, and a 3 turn cooldown, that is high. And so 10% chance of killing itself, I believe this is talking about your own monster. So you are risking your monster dying 1 in every 10 battles for only 20 damage. Well, to be fair, 20 damage and a 50% chance to give bleed to that one enemy monster you attack. And hey, you gave yourself 1 extra turn. But like, is a 10% chance of killing yourself for an extra turn really that worth it? Ooh, not in my opinion. Let's move on to the next one. Violent Barrage deals moderate fire damage to an enemy, 15% chance of killing yourself. So now you've upped the stake, 5% chance greater to kill yourself for 15 extra damage. I think that's definitely better. I would deal the extra 15 damage for an extra 5% chance to die, and you get an immediate extra turn. However, the stamina cost also went up by 10. But overall, between these two skills, I would say Violent Barrage is better, although it is fire based, not special based. But no, definitely, this one is way better. You get your extra turn, you deal your damage, but again, just like the fact that your monster may die, this is like a suicidal Rabies. Like, Rabies is bad because he inflicts damage to himself, but this monster is like gambling with death. It's insane. Offensive Axe Combo deals very heavy fire damage to one enemy, 25% chance of killing itself. So now every 1 in 4 battles, you're essentially going to lose your monster. Gives 1 extra turn to itself, requires cooldown. So now we have a 55 damage extra turn skill, 55 fire based damage, 70 stamina cost, insanely high, 3 turn cooldown. What's the upside? You get an extra turn. I mean, there's monsters. Look at Barrage. Everyone's like a wannabe Barrage. Barrage has no downside. Now, granted, he's an earth-based monster. Let me just go to him really quickly. This monster right here, my favorite earth-based attacker. Take a look at Bestial Charge. 50 earth-based damage, 25 stamina cost, 3 turn cooldown, heavy earth damage, 50% chance to stun the target, and an immediate extra turn. Alright, so let's review again. Extra turn, 50% chance to stun, 50 earth-based damage. And then FirEca's over here like 55 fire-based damage, 70 stamina cost, immediate extra turn, but 25% chance to kill yourself. Oh my gosh. Now, to be completely fair, I will say, considering there are so many monsters that can do revival, that have resurrection skills, that have some way to bring a monster back from the dead, it's not too bad. But at the same time, in my opinion, there's no reason to risk losing your old monster, even if you have a monster to resurrect. That resurrect should be there for when you need it, not when you gambled with a skill and just lost your monster. So I will say, the one upside this monster does potentially have, if I had to give him anything, was the fact that he can hold 2 sword relics, and again, that Jakugan sword. Because if you can do this, after hitting, if target's life is below 50%, if you can double equip 2 Jakugan swords, that is 24k damage if it's fully ranked up to all of the enemy monsters, physical based damage, which has the potential to be extremely powerful. So maybe this monster is like last in the turn order, has a level 10 strength rune, maybe 2 level 10 strength runes, and then you turn transfer into him with a demise to give him double damage, or with a Sammy to give him damage boost, and maybe one of his AoE skills, maybe that's enough to take an enemy to 50% of their health, and then double Jakugan sword activates. That could be extremely powerful. But as for the skills, there's so much downside. Like, going back to the fact that it's like endless stamina in the battlefield. So endless stamina orc. This skill I think could have been a little more plausible if it also gave you an extra turn, that way you can utilize that stamina. But just like as a standalone skill, I think I would rather recharge. I don't think I would risk using this skill. I would just recharge. There's no reason to give myself a 50% chance to kill myself when I could just recharge. It doesn't make sense to me. So as for skills for this monster, I gotta say though, definitely very unique. I think if there was more of an upside to the self-death, then the monster could be a lot more usable. But right now it's just interesting. I'm honestly really curious to see how players would utilize this monster if possible. Because seriously, the best thing I can think of is just utilizing double Jakugan sword. Maybe have 2 allies that can hold double traps, and that way you have 4 pestilence trap. That way there's a high likelihood for double Jakugan swords to activate. So maybe that's the route if that only certain players are going to be able to utilize. You would need 4 pestilence traps maxed out all the way, 2 allies that can hold double trap relics. Maybe there's a way to utilize it, team speed on your 2 allies, maybe 2 speed and a strength on this monster. And again with the AoEs, maybe one of these 2 skills. I don't know, maybe there's some interesting combination combo that can be pulled off. But as of right now, for the majority of players, if you do happen to get FirEca, run Unforgiving Axe, run Flaming Inferno, and then run, I would say 25 is too much. That's way too much risk. Even for the 55 damage, not worth it. I would say Violent Barrage is way better. 35 damage, 60 stamina, only a 15, I say only as if that's a good thing. Only a 15% chance to kill yourself. That's probably the best. And then honestly, Bloodthirsty combo. Or I completely disregarded this skill because I didn't think it would be needed, but you could possibly go back into skills group 1, get Ferocious Strike, which deals moderate fire damage, 50% chance of applying burn, and look at that, it deals the same amount of damage as Violent Barrage without the downside of killing yourself, although you don't get an extra turn. So definitely these 2 skills again. I would honestly go for both of these extra turn skills, even though they do have that downside of potentially killing yourself. I would definitely do that. I think that could be utilized for this monster. For runes on this monster, well, he is an attacker, so you do want to give him at least 1 strength rune. And as for the other runes, it's either going to be 2 team speed, it's going to be a single speed, or it's going to be 2 strength runes if they're low level runes. It really depends what kind of level your runes are. Very few players I imagine can pull off what I was talking about earlier. Double Jakugan sword, 2 speed and a strength rune, maybe even 3 speed you might be able to get away with. No, I'm talking blasphemy now, but that's like a very small number of players. The reality is I imagine most players won't be using this monster. However, if someone can think of an interesting way to use this monster where he's actually viable, please let me know in the comments below. I would really like to hear you guys' thoughts on FirEca. It's funny because I've been saying that the next generation of monsters are coming, these monsters are incredible, and with FirEca it's like, I'm not really seeing that. This monster so far, from what I've seen, appears to be the least of the amazing monsters. Definitely interesting though. I love that they're trying to introduce this mechanic of high risk, high reward, except I'm not really seeing the high reward. Like maybe if instead of instant kill, it was like delayed kill, that way you have a way to remove it. That way your orc trait can kind of protect you from getting the delayed kill negative status effect. I don't know, I'm gonna end there. Whatever thoughts you guys may have on FirEca, please let me know in the comments below. Super eager to hear you guys' thoughts on this monster. So with that being said, I will see you all next time.